Our first reader tonight is Mark Tate, and he is the author of 3 novels, The Side of the River, its sequel, River's End, published by McCaa Books in 2021, and Butterfly on the Wheel, also by McCaa Books in 2022. He served for 10 years on the Poets Selection Committee for the Poets Laureate of Sonoma County. His book of poems, Walking Scarecrow, won the Blue Light Press 2023 Poetry Book of the Year, and is available for purchase this evening. Mark is a longtime resident of Sonoma County, where he lives with his wife, Lori. Let's give a big welcome to Mark.
Thank you. Thank you, Shauna and Monica and Sandy for inviting me to read. My book is Walking Scarecrow. This is what I look like when I wake up in the morning. People might ask, well, what is a walking scarecrow? And it really started when I discovered Blythe's book on haiku. There's a haiku in there by Sanin. And it goes, it walked with me as I walked, the scarecrow in the distance. So I want to read a few poems from Walking Scarecrow, and then branch out a little bit in the continuing saga of Walking Scarecrow. Read some things that are not in that book. And then, just so I'm not coloring in the lines or staying in the lines, I like to color outside the lines. I'll read some other things that have nothing to do with Asian-inspired writing. First poem is called Dragonfly and Woodcutter. As I walk in the heat of the olive orchard, a dragonfly darts past me. I am pleased with the afternoon sunlight streaming through the field. My wife's shovel scrapes again. She is planting in the garden boxes. A neighbor and his son ring the gate bell, return a cooking dish. I clap hands, calling the cats in to come from play. Without envying the life or pursuits of others, thus blessed, we save a few dollars every month for the woodcutter's arrival and his services. Philosopher and Perch. The philosopher, carrying no water, picked up a gasping perch and took him along to the fields, leaving the dry carriage rut to a dusty snake who traded his skin for that of the red shadows moving in the road. The perch spoke. Philosopher, before you set me near the rice field lock, where as it drains into the stream, there will be plenty of water, please answer one question. Why do you bring books with you when you travel? The carriage wound through the countryside, creaking, and the philosopher answered, so much world shaking, my head aching with ideas. I find the ancient words help me with my balance. I have dropped countless cups of tea into the puddles of modern life. I like to walk around and run around. Can you hear me way back there if I were to scream? Okay, good.
She's going to turn it up.
I'll try, yeah. Try to stay close to this thing. This one's called Dream. All through the dream I saw you, the woman who helped me so many times, now a nurse, caring for me in a vast, maze-like hospital. Fluids, medications, your calm and kind spirit. And in my dream, as I left your care, I gave you a copy of Cold Mountain. When I woke, your scent and the scent of bone broth. The Four Directions. 5 miles outside the city limit, country roads bordered by vineyards, grasslands, oak-spotted hills, forested stretches along creeks and rivers, a young, quiet family lives in a modest house on 1 acre. Yesterday, their 8-year-old son, walking along the lane, pretended to shoot his bow and arrow. Then he placed them on the ground, lifted half a set of antlers from his belt clip, and held them to his forehead, pointing them to each of the 4 directions. A lot of these poems are my way of talking with Hanshan, Cold Mountain. So I'm imagining sometimes, 1,400 years, 1,500 years. Inheritance. My mind is like the autumn moon, says Hanshan, shining clean and clear in the green pool. No, that's not a good comparison. Tell me, how shall I explain? I take up the question. Perhaps the cold of the mountain night affected your concentration. Perhaps your mind is like the changing reflections in the pool where the dragonfly flashes and flames across the surface, marking the impermanence of its quick life and its airy inheritance from sun's fire. The jeweled stairs grievance after we hoe. The workmen who come every morning to attend the garden do not know that long before the dew settled on the jeweled stairs, I walked along the river waiting for you, my Lord. They see me at the window with flowers I pulled near the gate, my sadness hidden, having watched the moon travel the length of the river. Reminiscent. From the bridge, I watched the white swans skim the surface of the lake. I studied an old man at toast and tea, scraping the foil for butter. Deliberate as a cat, I dipped my tongue into the swirl of cream above the coffee. I heard a flutter of wings and the tapping of a chisel on a gravestone in the churchyard. I walked among the stones fallen from a wall, reminiscent of the ebb and flow of diaspora. Prayer. We are from many variations of light, through many gatherings and migrations, with many stories and retellings of stories. As we have traveled this one world, let no one be a stranger. Hindu, Buddhist, Jain, Sikh, follower of Confucius, seeker of the Tao, observer of the passive and active essences of Shinto, those who hear the call of Zarathustra, or Abraham and Moses, or Jesus, or followers of the journey of Muhammad, or the teachings of Baha'i, or the lessons of science, or the moons, or the reckoning of the pearl of great Christ, let no one be a stranger. Though we speak different languages, though we wear different clothes, though we eat different foods, no one on earth should remain a stranger. Meditate on stories and their intentions, and tell me what is in your heart. Let us sing together. Let no one be a stranger. Okay, I have a little confession to make. I used to read at the Healdsburg Third Sunday Salon. I was a featured reader there once. And I started crying with some of the poems that I was reading. I don't know, it was touching some element, emotion, and I didn't have any Kleenex with me. So I'm begging you, please, yeah. It was horrible. I stopped reading. This one is called Boatmen We Each Passage. And there's an epigraph from Upanishads. Lead me then over, I pray, to the farther shore that lies beyond sorrow. Mitigating the most misery post-chemo, falter the feathers of his night, urgency of recounted details, know what each medicine given might or might not lead to, back and forth so far from doctor's formula and insight, now difficult and dimming the flow of his story, which retelling was right, fatigue and fantasy follow us like the slow darkness along the riverside. Good night again, Father. Rest as these rivers we row through testimony and turns. Hold tight insomnia's child, O weary soul, O Father. As delirium and lymphoma you fight, my hands serve as your hands as we go. Falter the feathers of his night. Aged boatman, call me your shadow, pushing a pole to our palace tonight. Soft flutter of spirit's last flight. Okay, I need to get off that track for a bit. So, this is another dream. Dream number 2. Doc, I was standing on a chair watering a plant at the top of a bookcase and fell. The first telegram I sent was a bit odd. I'm sorry to have troubled you, but my symptoms. You see, I was sure I had a concussion, but I think my ill feeling was coincidental. Now, stop. I realize my condition is syllabic concision. Stop. Moonrise. Stop. Frog sound. Stop. What the raven sees. What verbal skills this raven has. I thought I heard him say chrysanthemum. The beauty of the word was a surprise because formerly he was cawing and croaking. When the ravens fly away from the bird feeders, one with evident avian ventriloquistic abilities answers the other 4, who are speaking at the same time. He states quite eloquently that the morning drizzle has passed and the yellow yarrow is standing tall. After spring rain, 5 ravens fly up from the bird feeders and congregate down the hill in the shade of a few oaks to practice their language. Perhaps this is a raven language school. Repeat after me. Chrysanthemum. Again. Chrysanthemum. Mesmerized, I sat and rested, drowsing. An old man fallen asleep on the bench. Memories seen from above, detached. Something had jogged my memories. I let myself imagine the scenes. The 4-year-old still angry about his father hitting him, his bloody nose, and his father tearing his favorite shirt off of him because he was crying. Having walked 7 blocks, he decided that running away from home gave him the right to walk across the frozen pond near the forest. Could he skate on its watery surface? He was comfortable in his snowsuit and gloves, and glad for the warmth of the winter sun on his face. The brightness reflected off the ice, causing him to squint, and momentarily he saw only the brilliance of melting ice. His weight, although slight, ruptured the thin, frozen surface of the pond, and he fell in. Like a rock, he descended quickly into the extreme cold and dark water. Looking up to the light of the receding sky above him, he saw bubbles climbing to the rupture in the ice and a blackbird flying from a branch. And then he was gasping for air. A neighbor pulled him from the pond and carried him home. Time and the usual happenings of the day or night eluded his understanding while he was sick. His mother was on her knees at his bedside, crying, praying. He was burning with fever, and he was crying because his mother was crying. His hand was folded inside her hand. a raven in the oak cawing at the empty bird bath. I'm walking with the Maine Coon cat, and we are watching the raven on the branch making such a racket. I get the hose. Once the bird bath is full, the raven flies to a taller tree. I wind the hose back on the post, and the cat and I walk up the path to the house. I look back and see that a robin has landed at the edge of the bird bath and is drinking. Is this interspecies cooperation? Bird of bird, bird for bird, bird by bird. Days pass, an unseasonably warm spell. Ravens arguing, it seems, cawing loudly and raucously in the oaks near where I am digging. Are they judging? These tones of recrimination change to urgent pleading, recycled to exclamations of outrage from many ravens. And now their calls change to what sounds like moans. Okay, this one's a little longer, last poem. And there are two epigraphs. One is a beautiful haiku from Chioni, and it goes like this. Change of kimono, showing only her back to the blossom's fragrance. The other epigraph is from Robert Graves. In his book about mythology, he says that the moon goddess was everywhere worshipped as a triad in honor of the moon's three phases, waxing, full, and waning. The moon's clothing. At what age did I begin to conceptualize mother? The soft garments under the perfectly pressed linen suit, the beige color offset by the dark scarf, a print of pink camellia flowers and olive green leaves, the waves of her russet hair. I cherished her image for years, even when confounded by a young woman. The rustle of her dress, her scent like nuts or yeast, or later, flowered scents borrowed from bottles that refracted the light as it streamed through her open windows, the sheer curtains moving laboriously as she partially disrobed. Oh, my young lover, a secret kept but worn like a blemish. And the older woman I visited instead of my anguished lover. She welcomed me on late evenings, often wearing flying black cranes on a white silk jacket. Her long black hair was loosely wound into a side bun with strands hanging down her left jawline to hide the remnants of a scar. And she shadowed her eyes with dark liner. Her lips were crimson, as though she held the stem of a rose in her teeth. In that dim room, in the faint cloud of her perfume, reminiscent of citrus, orange flower, ylang-ylang of bergamot, with a subtle hint of pear and mint. So we sat, conversed, charmed. I can't remember anything we talked about. Thank you.
Very much, Mark. That was beautiful. And our next feature is Brian R. Martens, who has always been a poet. His first book, Three Raven Gate, in 2019, consists of haiku and other of his favorite poems. His second manuscript, Merlin's Wing, is ready for publication. He hosts a podcast called The Spoken Symbol. Brian has a master's in organizational development and offers workshops on myth and ancient stories and creativity. He is a California Poet in the Schools instructor in Sonoma County and works with and facilitates small businesses and organizations. He co-hosts the Santa Rosa Art Center's Speakeasy, poetry, music, and open mic event. And his website is www.brianrmartens.com. Let's welcome Brian.
Thanks, everyone, for showing up tonight. I'm reading a few different poems, some more personal. Some I haven't read before. So this first one is Words to Poetry. Without a guide, words cannot become poetry. Birds are best, winged messengers, dive, submerge, below famished ocean forgetfulness. I think you have to go straight on this microphone. Choose a pursuit diver, pelican, tern, or booby. For the deepest dive, ask an emperor penguin. Pick out critical eyes, looking to mask your voice. Messenger uncovers buried seeds, wings of imagination flourish in fertile belonging. Bridge depths to sky and air, soar each word, light on thirsty tongue, voice strengthened, propelled by phoenix of flames. Now words find promised path, eyes feel, taste, colors, hear impossible music. Senses become magnets for magic. Body explodes, merges, voices speak passwords to magnificence. Fluid pen etching each word into hieroglyphics, pyrotechnics, forever fireworks for the soul. This is, I get Poets and Writers magazine, and this is a little fantasy I had. It's called Tate. I saw you picture in Poets and Writers magazine, fell in love. You, an accomplished poet with red-hot lips, short hair, slightly ruffled. Your sure stance and gaze embody your fearless poems. A teacher of words, one who can strangle a sentence into submission, rendering words into grit, flowers fade. I searched you and found you smoke. Have a boyfriend on the East Coast. I read your fierce interview. No room for doubt. Crafting these words for you, imagination, bending thought into fudge brownies for longing, wanting to meet of poetic dreams, constructing a poem to share, reflect, and for us to exist. All this before I had a chance to say, I like your poems. And I have to do at least one poem for my, I wrote this when he was 18 months. He's now 8 years old. Oh my gosh. After a child's nap. I pull him from his crib into my arms, warm, settling him there after a brief cry. He holds court, administers things that need saying, none of which I can understand. He points to a window and begins. I think he's describing a tree across the street in colors and judges the sky by its weight. Artistically, he expounds with voice, inflection, and tone, whimsical, melodious, infectious. I don't understand, yet I believe. I trust his awareness. I don't want him to stop, ever. He sounds like manna, a voice from Eden, echoing Adam's voice, or Eve's, or a blend of the first voices. A voice soft, yet knowing. It all makes perfect sense to him as he continues in a whisper, his lips bursting with mysterious words. His tone, awakened bells splashed with rosewater, a delicate love song sung by lovers. The language of angels bubbling from his lips, more gesturing, pointing. An experience of art, or Jesus speaking his foreign language, understanding there will be enough fishes and loaves for everyone. More about poets. Why I trust poets. They have webbing between their toes, see in the darkened spaces, have a small nest in their hair, One fingernail is a small claw, and they have a tuft of fur behind one ear. The poet has lived disguised, nurtured in a shroud of words and cracks of light. Their speech transcending any spoken language. The poet knows the craft of truth and falsehood, can distinguish between flowers and faith, knows the voice as a spoken symbol. The poet apprentices the natural world, bridging differences into an ecstatic presence. And we'll talk about my dad next, Paul. Walking early with you on your birthday, Orion watching from the moonlit sky, Cheshire moon smile knowing you, father and son walking, but wishing you were by my side. Chopping wood, fixing or riding tractors, red tractors, and all would be fine despite the harshness between us during childhood years. My belt pulled tight, extra hanging and ready for anything when I am with you. You feel close, looking up at you now. Orion feels closer than 1,500 light years. Your warrior fills me with you. Time no longer between us. And one of my favorite tribes is the Bushmen of South Africa. They're one of the first people on the earth, ancient culture. The Bushmen of the Kalahari Desert follow lightning. They follow thunder and rain, mimic electricity. A clicking of words and tracks connects them with lightning. The excitement of light in clouds, special effects quench their thirst. Lightning and electricity, their god of survival. Carrying water and ostrich eggs, they adapt like walking plants, searching for lightning. Walking, waiting, walking, waiting. Mothers baptize their babies to the stars and sky, praying, feeling sacred connection, announcing each baby blessed with stardust. This Stone Age tribe cast aside by the white man, the gods of everything. The white man doesn't depend, he takes, makes, nothing left to chance. Bushmen witness food and water abundance in the Land Rover. Desert ships holding all they need without a thought of thanks. Bushmen see easy abundance and holes in the bodies of men, a loss of soul. Power of authority pressures Bushmen to fold tents, live in government housing, away from light stars. Bless the Bushmen who have stories connecting them forever to the beginning of time. Here's another about my dad, a little more dark side of my dad. The hell of a mistake. My father is fixing the baler with his dad and a watching farmer. The gravity of critical embedded in his right shoulder, visceral verdict in his right ear, entering through his right side, unprotected, willing to take the blow of fault and blame. Arrow of flame sent from his dad and the farmer. Their justified passing a thread of ancestral shadow, the pride of being right, cloaked to preserve the impeccable self. This moment holds a lifetime, wound hidden deep, partially let go to attach to my right shoulder, preserving the shadow, alert for the next wound. He tells his story to finally let go, allowing me to learn about fathers, the wounding, and to ease the pain in my right side, his right side, shoulder, and fear, to trust again. He tells his story to say what is so, to speak what the body needs, allowing a full breath to enter and exit my full, open, clear, strong heart. one of my favorites. Everybody knows Rilke, right? Poet Rilke. So, in his famous poem, The Panther. Well, so I want to know what the Panther's thinking. So this poem's from the Panther's viewpoint. It's called The Rilke. Timid in hat and coat, sitting on a bench in the Paris Zoo, he stares. Sitting apart from comfort, his body hidden, barring him from an opening to see to the animals. He comes day after day observing me, testing his will to discover a path to pierce and expose inside. Daily imprisoned within hat and coat, his vision paces less, moves further until he trusts. Through time, his introspection sees past his contentment, begins to penetrate inside my animal essence. His eyes seize me without the believed bars passing, knows the thread is felt between us, and suddenly is aware I am Panther. And this is an homage to Phyllis. I think everybody knows Phyllis Mechelin, most of the poets. Well, when I started the California Poets in the Schools training, she was one of the poets I trained with. And this day was just amazing. Anyway, this is for her. It's called Your Face. She spoke the story to her 5th grade class as if the story was about another friend, neighbor, a stranger. Words escaped her mouth, filtering through the classroom, entering each pair of tuned ears, sinking down their small bodies, attached to a shadowy film below the chest. Your face is a face only a mother could love, he spoke. Those words contagious in my throat, afflicting my breath from entering a shocked heart. A crippling comment that a man could criticize this woman as a defenseless girl in her youth. Was this story for me, the students, the room, walls to absorb? Even light heard this and paused. I felt the planet tilt. Maybe as a young girl she had already confronted comparison, not shocked as I was. In her 70s, telling this story to her class and me, shared vulnerable. Her story told more about a foolish man than her confronting comparison, which she brushed off and moved on without an outward blink. My mind racing for words, resolution, as she finished her sharing. The children shuffled feet, shifted in chairs, watched her continue her lesson. One person's honest speaking years later, without blame, acknowledged. Words are arrows sent, deflected, not heard, or buried deep into a young, armored heart. I started breathing again as the class settled into another subject, sharing poetry. What courage would a youth gather when hearing these words? What poem would restore, honor, and heal a spoken wound? Thanks to Phyllis. Getting out of the way, more about poetry. Poetry is a locomotive, blaring, blasting, incapable of being stopped. Poetry is a timid child, waiting patiently with sight of a sage, perplexed at my paltry profession. I marvel at the balance of poetry, when to step out of the way, when to take a child by the hand and listen to that voice moving together. This dance of poetry, a cha-cha swing, two-step tango, a satisfying salsa, or fandango. Words forming a line to be chosen, to fit a rhythm, a cadence, music. Crowding, pushing in place, colliding, anticipating, finding the final stop. Silence beckons with faith in words without missing a beat. Surprise steps become seen, visualized into a path. Poetry, a locomotion of agitated words, moving, inviting, blending into a search for the backstep of creation. Let's do this one. It's called First Kiss. You know, what else can you say? What else can you say? First kiss, August 2nd. What year? Who? I found written on a scrap of paper in an old file. I thought of throwing it away. I gazed at the note amazed. I burned through anticipation and wonder, searching the seared aloneness now stalking me. The mosaic of moments seeking transmutation. Dreamy romantic music has kept me here, wallowing in an old affection. I recycle this scrap of my life. And I'll finish with, this is called A Potter. I really owe a lot to Margaret Wildenheim. She was the first master potter out of the Bauhaus tradition in Germany, and she had to leave during the war. Came to California and started Pond Farm Pottery, and she really gave me the structure. And although I'm not a potter anymore, she gave me the structure for a creative life, the determination, her craft, and how she used nature in all her designs, all her pottery. I mean, she was just an amazing. I studied here 3 summers up in Armstrong Woods, and then just had to move out to California from the Midwest. You know, you can't stay in the Midwest forever, right? So. Anyway, The Potter, and it has an epigraph by Rumi. We began as a mineral. We emerged into plant life and into animal state, and then into being human. And always we have forgotten our former states, except in early spring when we slightly recall being green again. Born of minerals, clay, chemicals, grog, glass, glaze, fire sharp, dull, soft, hard, round, these traits of a potter tempered by Promethean fire into a creative body. Equally intuitive master of a mystery, with clay of utility and grace, sparked by flame. This earth beneath your feet, this constant holding of gravity, drawing clay and soil into center, pulling into your center all you need. Composting, sifting, growing, harvesting, grinding rock into a clay of heart, heat, fire. This clay you came from now in your hands to create again in the crucible of mystery. Gratitude for the centered growth in your core, marvel of a creative life. This creation, crafted, decorated with flair, care, surrendered to the muses, life-tested and burned by fire, death. Cooled to a form of magic, born from this simple clay, you are made to manifest more life than you were given, created with hands centered in trust. Thank you.